Welcome to the fifth week of our course on designing resilient housing. Thank you for being with us and for all the work and energy and passion that you're putting into the course. In this course, we are designing houses that can help all those people around the world that live in areas affected by natural hazards, and eventually with your designs and with the implementation after the course, those families who desperately need new homes can have a better living and have better spaces to live their lives. In this fifth week, we are continuing the design and we are focusing on design development. So remember, we started with the definition of the location, the geography, and the type of natural hazard that you're working on. That was the first week. And the second week, we went through precedent studies of other projects in the area where you're working or in similar areas with similar types of problems. Then in the third week, we started designing the housing unit, and we saw a few really interesting proposals. In the fourth week, we went further into the design of the modules and aggregating them into a larger system. So essentially, we first designed a module which was about 50 square meters, and then combined a few modules in order to arrange them into a larger compound or a larger house. In this fifth week, which is also the third week of our design, we're proceeding with the design development. So we gave those who attended our virtual meetings on Saturday some feedback, and we were excited to see the work actually finally coming through and finally seeing some sketches, plans, some 3Ds and sections. So that was very exciting for us, for our team of professors and teaching assistants. And this week, what we want to do is to go further into design with the feedback that you already received. So we gave you feedback on Saturday to those who attended, and others who submitted on our Facebook group. We also were giving you feedback during the week with comments on your project. So now it's time for you to start and get deeper into the design and take it to the next level. So we want to see like all those initial intentions and concept that you had, and schematic design, and abstract ideas and research that you did in resilience, how they translate into an actual project. In order to do this, we have to confront all the parts of the building. And remember, same way as we were discussing in the beginning in the precedent studies, we divided the building into structure. We spoke about membrane, which is basically the enclosure of the building, the walls and the roofing system. Then we spoke about the interior spaces and the definition of interior spaces. And then we spoke about the building systems, which are the power, water, and then waste management. So we now want to see further into your design how you would apply these concepts, or how you would build a structure that are resilient to strong winds like the 300 kilometers wind in the Philippines, or to the earthquakes that are devastating for Chile, for the west coast of the United States, Japan, China, and recently this terrible earthquake that we had in Nepal. So we really want to see what kind of structure is appropriate for these locations. Then in terms of membrane and enclosure, we want to see what kind of materials you're going to be using. Are they going to be light or heavy, and how they would behave in the case of different natural hazards. So for example, for typhoons, it's obviously better to have some kind of heavy wall or walls that are attached in a good way to the structure, so that when you have this really powerful wind, it doesn't take the house away and the roof, but the house stays intact and protects the inhabitants. In the case of earthquakes, you want to have some kind of light membrane. So you want to have a membrane that able to move, and instead of being rigid, it kind of moves, and when it starts shaking, it can adapt and kind of flex according to the movement. All right, so all this is in terms of the kind of the structural considerations. In terms of membrane, we want to see how the membrane, how the roof protects from wind, how the roof protects from rain and from heavy snows. Some of the groups that we are looking at, for example, the group in Lebanon is working to design houses for this village that's in the mountains of Lebanon that gets like so much snow in the winter that the houses collapse because of the like snow and tough conditions. So we really want to see what you're going to do about it. And then last but not least, the building systems. You know, we want to see how you collect the water and eventually store it. Some rural areas, they don't necessarily have running water, so you either have to kind of collect rainwater and store it somewhere in a tank, or you need to dig a really deep well and get like water from underground, or you need to maybe melt the snow or something and kind of, or purify the water from the river and use that water. So we want to see what happens with water. We want to see what happens with energy. Like, do you put solar panels? Do you heat the house with just coal and wood? Do you have some kind of like thermal, like passive heating and cooling? For example, you know, if you have windows that allow the sunlight to go in, but at the same time are insulated enough that heats the interior. Then if you have passive cooling, maybe with evaporative cooling, we can also cool the building. And then the recycling. What do you do with the waste? Do you burn it? Do you collect it? Do you use it in the gardens? Like, what exactly happens? So we want to see all these different aspects of the house that are already kind of shaping up and defining your project. So in this week, we want to have on Saturday our first big design midterm critique and jury, where we'll invite guests to look at your project and to give feedback in real time. So I definitely encourage you to submit the project on Friday and to come to our meeting on Saturday so you can get really good feedback on your project and some guidance on how to complete the course.